tourism sector makes significant contribution to the country's economy. But in the midst of changing dynamics, including into the unknowns, the pandemic in 2019, just but an example, scaling up remains a priority to keep the country competitive. And ahead of the Jamhuri Day celebrations 2025, themed around tourism, the bench this evening hosts the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism and Wildlife, Rebecca Miano, who is already in studio. In her company will be June Chepkemei, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Tourism Board. In their company will be Odek Fred, the Chairperson of the Kenya Tourism Federation, and Masharia Mike completes the quartet, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers. We discuss the dreams ahead for the country, including the adoption of technology, AI to be specific, to enhance the country's image globally. I am Ayub Abdikadir. Here are the top stories tonight.
That is such a quagmire because what it does is that it crowds out resources that would have otherwise gone towards development investment, and particularly the social and economic rights. A limping economy as the bulk of Kenya's resources is channeled toward debt repayment and wage bill.
Voters were seen photographing marked ballot papers, undermining the secrecy of the vote.
Human rights group threatens to sue the IEBC and the EACC. Vocal Africa threatens action over alleged poll irregularities during the just concluded by-elections. Moments before the fall, CCTV footage captured what transpired on the 14th floor of a Kilimani apartment before the late Festus Oromo fell to his death. President William Ruto in Washington, D.C. to witness the signing of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda peace agreement. Njoki Shege is our sign language interpreter. The government's economic policies on public debt and the wage bill are taking resources away from essential services, and this is worsening inequality in the country. Two reports by Kenya Human Rights Commission shows that the bulk of Kenya's resources are channeled towards debt repayment and the wage bill, leaving inadequate allocations to key critical sectors, including health, education, development, and social protection. The report also establishes that Kenya's high poverty levels are steeped in historical injustices, including those tied to land. Here's Brenda Wanga with that report.
Wow. The first report, titled The Economics of Repression, paints a chilling picture of Kenya's public finances. It reveals that today, a staggering 68% of all ordinary government revenue is immediately consumed by just two things: servicing the country's massive public debt and paying the ballooning government wage bill.
It crowds out resources that would have otherwise gone towards development investment, and particularly the social and economic rights under the sectors of focus that we are talking about. That's health, that's education, water and sanitation, food security, and also social protection.
In just 4 years, interest on public debt has jumped from 18% to 25% of total government spending. This drain is starving the sectors Kenyans depend on most. Support for older persons has shrunk from 18 billion shillings to 15 billion. Funding for orphans has dropped from 7 billion shillings to just 5 billion shillings. The consequences are immediate and painful. Families report hospitals without medicine. At the county level of the country's capital, rail health spending has dropped from 8 billion shillings to 7 billion shillings, despite a population of over 5.7 million residents. This financial maneuvering, critics argue, requires greater accountability from the country's leadership.
Also asking them to tame the executive, because it is the one responsible for the impunity we are exposing, which is also responsible for the violations of the rights we have talked about.
But the policy failure isn't just about spending. The second report, Who Owns Kenya, links the economic crisis directly to extreme land inequality. While land is Kenya's most valuable asset, fewer than 2% of Kenyans own more than half of the country's arable land. To put that into perspective, 0.1% of large-scale landholders occupy 39% of farmed land. Meanwhile, 98% of all farm holdings, averaging just 1.2 hectares, occupy only 46%.
Majority of the land that is being owned by the 0.1% of the population is very much idle, and being kept idle, it means that they are doing it for speculation, and unfortunately, it's in very prime areas. So we are seeing people who are holding huge chunks of land, and we have Kenyans who do not even own an eighth of a piece of land.
The Kenya Human Rights Commission reports points to a country with two parallel economic systems, one that protects the wealth and land of the elite with minimal taxation, and another that imposes high taxes on basic goods and income for ordinary citizens. The solution, according to the reports, can be found in the root problem, land. KHRC is now proposing the introduction of a national land value tax that will target idle and speculative land, a move that will help unlock resources for development. Estimates suggest that such wealth taxation could generate up to 125 billion shillings, nearly doubling the current social protection budget. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
And human rights groups and election observers are raising concerns on the conduct of the just concluded by-elections. They cite violence, intimidation, bribery and breaches inside polling stations during the polling period. Vocal Africa Group and Elections Observation Group ELOG are now demanding accountability from both the Electoral Commission IEBC and government officials. Emily Chebet has that report.
The Elections Observation Group and Vocal Africa are raising concerns over what they have termed as sustained violence, voter bribery and intimidation during the just concluded by-election. Acts they say contributed to significant voter apathy on the election day.
At least 3 persons were reported killed and tens others injured in the by-election campaigns. Goods worth millions were destroyed in the campaigns. Polling stations recorded electoral malpractices even on voting day. Police were selective in their responses. Voters reported witnessing direct bribery.
In 15.2% of observed polling stations, voters were seen photographing marked ballot papers, undermining the secrecy of the vote. These incidents occurred despite existing regulations prohibiting the use of phones in voting booths. This is a critical violation of the principle outlined in Article 81(d)(1) of the Constitution that requires that our elections must be done by secret ballot.
The two groups who are releasing their reports separately accused the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission of failing to take decisive action during the campaigns and on election day.
In a number of instances, unauthorized persons were allowed to access the polling stations without the required accreditation badges. It's a serious violation of election laws and has the potential to create disruption of the electoral processes. A number of these individuals included the so-called political party super agents.
Polling officials witnessed interference or pressure from state officers. Politicians actively campaigned and accessed polling stations to influence voters. Incidents of violence were reported within polling stations and environs. There was a clear low voter turnout.
We saw government vehicles ferrying people to campaign events. We saw chiefs compiling attendance lists for rallies of specific candidates. And we saw public meetings discussed as development tours used as campaign platforms.
The two groups maintain that the by-elections were not up to standard, adding that if immediate action is not taken, Kenya risks a highly unstable and violently contested 2027 general election. Emily Chebet, Citizen TV.
President William Ruto has landed in Washington, D.C. ahead of the signing of the Democratic Republic of the Congo-Rwanda peace agreement, meant to put to an end years of fighting in eastern DRC. The president will also witness the signing of Kenya and America Health Cooperation deal, which will foster a 25-year partnership to advance the universal healthcare coverage in the country. Emmanuel Tor has that report.
His arrival in Washington, D.C., United States of America, will see President William Ruto preside over the signing of the historic DRC-Rwanda peace agreement, which will hopefully end the decades of conflicts at the eastern DRC region. According to a communique issued by State House Nairobi, President William Ruto, who is also the chairman of the EAC, will, at the invitation of President Donald Trump, join Rwanda President Paul Kagame and his DRC counterpart Felix Tshisekedi in the event. The deal is expected to unlock pathways for disarmament, demobilization, humanitarian access, and long-term stabilization. How are you? The deal also comes about a year after the two leaders signed a peace pact in Doha, Qatar, to put an end to the war that has so far led to the killings of millions of people since the war broke in 1996. The agreement also comes months after the Nairobi and Luanda peace processes, as well as the joint EAC SADC initiative that sought long-term stability in the two nations. M23 rebels have fought the DRC government in North Kivu province in a conflict with roots in the 1994 Rwandan genocide. The more than 100 rebel groups are made up primarily of ethnic Tutsi who are targeted by the Hutu in Rwanda.
The office of President of the United States.
President Ruto will also oversee the signing of the Kenya-US Health Cooperation Framework that seeks to foster a 25-year partnership to advance the universal health coverage. The head of state is expected to outline Kenya's agenda to transition to a first-world economy, highlighting the prospects of infrastructure expansion, human capital development, and agricultural growth. Further, he will seek public-private partnership investments in several priority areas to support Kenya's long-term projects. Emmanuel Tor, Citizen TV.
Festus Oromo, the man who fell from a 14th floor apartment to his death in Kilimani Estate here in Nairobi, was engaged in a scuffle with one of the suspects shortly before his fall to death. An ongoing investigations by the DCI has also established CCTV footage showing Oromo's last movements, as Ode Francis details in the following report.
It began as an ordinary check-in on 28 November 2025. Surveillance footage from the apartment complex shows Festus arriving at the room B1406 on 14th floor. 12 minutes later, at exactly 4:19, a man believed to be a delivery rider, dressed in black and with his face obscured by a scarf, approaches the door. He hands over a package to Festus and quickly departs. But what unfolded nearly 9 hours later would turn this quiet evening into a crime scene. At precisely 1:06 a.m., a man now identified as Patrick, currently in custody at Kilimani Police Station, is seen stepping out of the same apartment. He lingers outside the door for 1 minute before entering again. He is dressed in a black hoodie, blue jeans, black shoes, and carrying a dark-tan brown bag. 7 minutes later, at 1:13, Patrick reappears, this time accompanied by another man believed to be Festus Oromo. Festus is seen holding Patrick by the shoulders, while Patrick clutches a drink in his right hand. Festus briefly enters the apartment, then returns to the doorway where Patrick is waiting. The two engage in a short conversation and leave together. They appear cheerful. Moments later, Patrick is seen again, this time in black vest, shorts and black sandals, heading straight to the 14th floor lift. At 1:15, Festus returns alone. He knocks on the door of B1406 and walks towards the lift area, only to return 1 minute later. At 1:16, he enters the apartment. What happens next is captured on camera. A visible scuffle between Festus and a woman now identified as Lillian Becky. The door closes as the confrontation continues inside. That would be the last time Festus Oromo was seen alive. At exactly 1:57 a.m., 41 minutes later, security footage captures the harrowing moment Festus' lifeless body lands on the roof of a white vehicle parked on the ground floor. Night guards on duty confirm the body was unresponsive, a feeling that would be rubber-stamped by the Kilimani detectives after they arrived at the scene. Authorities have since detained suspects including Patrick and Lillian, who will remain in custody for 14 days as detectives pursue leads and forensic analysis. The body of Festus Oromo has been transferred to General Cargo Mortuary from City Mortuary by family as investigations continue. Ode Francis, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Ugandan President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni says the internet in Uganda should be government-owned rather than controlled by private entities. He argues that the move will prevent overpricing and ensure broader access for the public. During a meeting with the youth ahead of the elections next year, the president said that when private businesses do control the internet, they prioritize profits, leading to high costs for consumers. His remarks have, however, sparked criticism over fears of possible internet shutdown ahead of the elections early next year.
I think the cost was coming down from $600 per gigabyte or something else. It will come down. It will come down. But the strategy is that the backbone should be owned by the government, not the private people. So if the private people have their own backbone and they make it expensive, you abandon them and you use the government one.
The High Court has ordered the Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja and DCI boss Amin Mohamed to appear in court on the 16th of December to explain the whereabouts of security analyst Mwenda Mbijiwe, who went missing in 2021. In an emotional court session, Mbijiwe's mother, Jane Gatwiri, narrated to the court how her son lived in fear after receiving threats from powerful people. Gatwiri said she believes her son is still alive and is being held incommunicado by the state. Gatete Njoroge explains.
It's the cry of a mother who has known no peace for the last 4.5 years. She has walked through the corridors of justice in search of justice for her missing son. Security analyst Mwenda Mbijiwe, with no end in sight, Jane Gatwiri poured her heart out to Justice Martin Muya, telling him how Mbijiwe was a marked man and knew his enemies were closing in on him.
Unajua Mwenda alikuwa anatumia tangali zake, alikuwa na threats mingi kutoka kwa wakubwa kutoka Meru. Very senior people, nimewaandika kwa hiyo barua saa utaona, na si ati ni mambo ya uongo nimesema. Kama nimesema uongo nistakiwa na nipelekwa kotini.
Gatwiri says she sought help from senior government officials who assured her that Mbijiwe will be released, but that promise has never been fulfilled.
Serikali iko pale kulinda wananchi wake, si kuua. Kama vile mnaua, mjue mko na watoto na watoto wenu watafanywa vile mnafanyia watoto wetu.
The family lawyer Evans Ondieki has challenged the proposal by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions to forward the file to a magistrate's court for purposes of opening an inquest.
They are saying they received the file. They can't disclose what is in the file, but they want an inquest, presumably for a person who is missing, presumed dead. So you can see where they are heading. They are actually telling us that the man is not alive, but we want to know who killed him and why.
I stand that Mbijiwe is very much alive. And within this Nairobi, they are trying to twist things, but I want to tell them, if I thought they killed my son, God in heaven is watching of them. They are going to pay it very soon.
Justice Muya, while noting the seriousness of the case, directed the Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja and DCI Director Mohamed Amin to appear physically in court on December 16th and explain the whereabouts of the missing security analyst. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Elsewhere, it's a big relief for Nyamira County Governor Amos Nyaribo after the Senate terminated the impeachment proceedings against him. The Senate upheld a preliminary objection raised by the governor, arguing that the County Assembly of Nyamira did not meet the required numbers to legally impeach the governor. As a result, the impeachment motion was thrown out on technicality, with the Senate now questioning the quorum needed to impeach governors in case of vacant seats in the County Assembly.
For senators, the result of the division is as follows. Ayes 38 votes, nays 4 votes, abstention 0. So the ayes have it. Now, honorable senators, I have a communication to make regarding the effect of the vote on the motion on the preliminary objection. Now, honorable senators, the motion having been approved, the hearing on the proposed removal from office by impeachment of Honorable Amos Kimwomi Nyaribo, Governor of Nyamira County, is hereby terminated.
Northeastern members of parliament have sounded the alarm of an impending drought in the region. The lawmakers speaking in parliament want the government to declare a national disaster to enable access to immediate and assistance to resources to support affected communities in the region. The leaders are now asking the government to effect the livestock offtake program as the drought continues to take root.
First of all, to declare drought a national disaster. Because this is the only way now donors can come in. This is the only way, again, other humanitarian agencies actually can come in. And this will enable the government actually to even appeal for help to the international community.
Livestock are dying. And today, tomorrow, the day after, we'll be having cases of people dying.
And I understand there is a case of death already in my constituency in Madera East. I have that report today.
We are going to see a multiplication of that in many parts of the region if we do not act now and act fast.
Away from the clarion call by the lawmakers from Northeastern region, when we get back from the break, plenty to run you through, including business and some stories. And also the bench will be graced by the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism and Wildlife, Rebecca Miano. In her company will be the CEO, the Kenya Tourism Board, June Chepkemei. In their company will be Odek Fred, the chairperson of the Kenya Tourism Federation, and the lineup will be completed by Masharia Mike, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers. The dreams ahead is going to be the subject of our discussion, and the Jamhuri Day celebrations themed around tourism, technology, and how Kenya can remain competitive across the stage. Here is what's coming up on the program. Coming up, government unveils major tea reforms to double farmers' earnings by 2027. Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Tea farmers will soon receive their bonuses every quarter instead of once in a year. The Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development says the change is part of reforms in the tea sector aimed at doubling farmers' earnings to 100 shillings per kilogram of green leaf by 2027. Marianne Nyambura has that report.
Livestock Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe, while appearing before the National Assembly, pointed out that the reforms are aimed at ensuring fair, transparent and uniform earnings for tea farmers.
We have to modernize the factories, and in order to address the inefficiencies in various tea factories, the government is providing some 3.7 billion shillings loan facility at a concessionary rate of 5% from the Kenya Development Corporation to all smallholder tea factories, those who wish, in order to modernize equipment and machinery in small tea factories in Kenya.
CS Kagwe outlined a 10-point plan to stabilize prices, improve quality and strengthen governance in the tea sector. Key measures include enforcing strict green leaf quality standards, establishing a tea quality lab in Mombasa, rolling out a strategic tea quality improvement program, and modernizing factories with a 3.7 billion shillings concessional loan facility, among other measures.
It is also expected that the factories will use the facility to also expand their production of orthodox teas which fetch higher prices in the niche markets in order to reduce reliance on CTCTs, which are currently facing challenges of oversupply in the global markets.
The reforms come at a time when auction prices have dropped to $2.41 per kilogram of tea, down from $2.54 due to forex shortages in Pakistan and Egypt, conflict in Sudan, and market access challenges in Iran. Markets that account for about 70% of Kenya's tea exports. The country's tea sector has been grappling with prolonged court cases that have stalled reforms. Miriam Nyambura, Citizen TV.
Chief Justice Martha Koome has called on the Council of Legal Education to modernize and review the curricula for the legal fraternity to fill the gaps in the sector. The Chief Justice, who was speaking during the Council of Legal Education and Training in Kenya and the region, defended the recent admission to the bar of 920 new lawyers that attracted online criticism, saying all the advocates were fully qualified for admission to the bar and that there was no reason to divide the group into two. The Chief Justice also weighed in on claims of universities producing half-baked graduates, saying the Supreme Court has in the last 2 years been conducting moot courts with law students, which has proven they are well prepared for the profession. She also called on lawyers to uphold integrity in the profession and help in the fight against graft.
I know the problem is with the quality of education. If that is the problem, that's a problem, then we address it. But we can't throw our babies with bath waters. These are our children whom we have taken through basic education, secondary, tertiary, school of law, professional training, and we cannot be gatekeepers because we became. So we cannot stop the others from becoming. So that is a conversation we had.
Kenya has been ranked third globally for cases of medicalized FGM by the United Nations Children Fund, UNICEF. The high ranking has jolted the country not only because the practices persist, but because it is increasingly being carried out by trained healthcare professionals. The very people entrusted to protect women's health are now performing a procedure they know can be dangerous, traumatic, and life-altering. And as Mary Mwoki tells us in the following report, East African lawmakers are pushing for a powerful regional law dubbed Elimination of FGM Bill 2025 in order to close the loopholes that allow both medicalized and cross-border FGM to thrive.
Has been dubbed as betrayal in scrubs. Doctors, nurses, and midwives, often regarded as guardians of health, have now become major drivers of FGM, often sought by families who perceive it as a safer alternative with fewer immediate health risks and a faster healing process, while still adhering to cultural expectations. The bill explicitly criminalizes healthcare providers who perform or facilitate FGM, imposing heavy fines of up to 4.5 million on offending hospitals.
The advocacy that took place before concentrated on the harms of FGM. So you're seeing people trying to mitigate that harm by opting to go to medical practitioners or using medical equipment such as anesthesia, or even going to institutions to go through FGM.
This medicalized menace cuts across Africa. A UNICEF report from 25 countries found that rates of FGM medicalization among women aged 15 to 49 are highest in 5 countries, Kenya included. Sudan leads the list of shame with 67%, followed by Egypt with 38%, with Kenya and Guinea at 15%, followed by Nigeria at 13%. The Ma community, which has embraced the cut for generations and ostracized the uncut, has signed a declaration to unanimously abolish the vice. Ma cultural chief Daniel Koitoi Kipilosh says the declaration from 33 Ma-speaking communities will end the vice.
When an uncut girl gives birth to a child, that child is given a name. And this name is associated to bad omens in the society. So we bless the mother which in this case a mother who is not cut, and we also bless a child, so that they all become equal, you know, like any other child.
The EAC elimination of FGM Bill 2025 seeks to forge one unbreakable legal shield across the 8 East Africa member states. The bill criminalizes cross-border FGM practices and will close legal and enforcement loopholes that exist between national laws, such as those related to cross-border and medicalized FGM.
We have a lot of issues in cross-border. We have a lot of issues of our girls going to our neighbors. We also have porous borders. So the regional bill is going to give us a coordinated effort so that we implement the law together.
Mary Mwoki, Citizen TV.
Persons living with disabilities are now urging the national government to adopt at least one cabinet secretary with a disability, saying they have long been sidelined and confined to low-level jobs despite many of them having the qualification. They also claim that the Social Health Authority insurance scheme has failed to meet their needs, with some public hospitals still charging them for essential services. It comes as Kenya joins the world in marking the International Day of Persons Living with Disability. Here's Willie Lusige with that report.
Despite possessing the skills, qualifications and experience to serve at the highest levels, persons living with disabilities say they are consistently shut out of key government appointments, including cabinet positions, and too often relegated to junior roles. They now want President William Ruto to appoint one of their own to the executive to end years of stigma and underrepresentation.
Siku hizi watu ambao wana ulemavu wako na wamesoma na kwamba wako na elimu inayofaa. Kwa hivyo tunahitaji kuona kwamba tuko na ministers ambao ni walemavu. Tunataka tuone pia ma-CEO, ma-directors hapo. Hatutaki kupewa kazi ya kufagia, tunataka kupewa kazi ya kuokota tu kodi. Tunataka tuone kwamba tumewekwa katika mahali ambao inafaa.
They further argue that the SHA health insurance scheme is still falling short, with some public hospitals continuing to turn them away or demand payment for essential services that should be available to them free of charge.
Afya bado nje kuwa very clear, because before ilikuwa unaweza tibiwa, lakini wanasema SHA na ukienda level 5 hawachukui SHA. Ndio tuko na watu wengi hapa wetu wameenda pale wamerudishwa ama wameitishwa madawa. So this issue ya SHA hatunjaielewa mzuri sana. It's not very friendly to walemavu.
Many also say that while they receive financial support as persons with disabilities, then undisabled children are left out, forcing parents to bear the burden of school fees and education costs alone.
Mimi ni mlemavu na niko na mtoto wangu si mlemavu. Saa zingine unakuta tunapata challenges kulea watoto wetu kwa sababu watoto wetu ni normal, na saa zingine unakuta mwenye anaangaliwa sana ni mlemavu. Kwa hivyo tuangaliwe sana side of scholarship, side of sometimes feeding.
Na sisi ambao tunaona tuko sawa, tujue ni kitu inaweza fanyika wakati wowote. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri pia tujumuike na wale wenzetu ambao wamekumbwa na hizi changamoto, tuonyeshe kuwa tuko pamoja.
Willie Lusige, Citizen TV.
The committee overseeing the 10-point agenda and the NADCO report, also known as COIN-10, has reaffirmed its commitment to the implementation of reforms from the March Pact between President William Ruto and the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. The committee says Raila's passing is a huge loss, but stressed the reform process must continue. It congratulated his brother, Oburu Oginga, the new ODM party leader, for pledging to carry forward Raila's vision, and confirmed that Oburu has already met the committee and pledged full support for the agenda.
The committee continues to actively oversee the implementation of the 10-point agenda by meeting stakeholders in social, economic and political spheres with the aim of making the nation better for all. We are also looking at issues of debt, issues of corruption, issues of inclusivity, issues of wastage, issues of sovereignty of the people, issues of the compensation for protesters. All these issues moving into detail to see whether the infrastructure that has been put into place has actually been able to implement, and we are coming to oversee where that process is. In other words, then we'll be able to come and advise and say, these are the missing gaps. Here is where we need to have coordination.
All right, away from the commitment by Dr. Agnes Zani. Before we take a break, Waziri Miano is here with us, the Cabinet Secretary, Tourism and Wildlife. And many thanks for your time, Waziri, and making time.
Thank you.
This panel will be full later.
Yes,
yeah.
It will be.
A pleasure to grant us your company here on the broadcast this evening. First, let's begin with then 12th of this month, Jamhuri Day. Why has it been themed around tourism?
Thank you very much. Since the year 2022, the government adopted themed celebrations for the major public holidays. And this year, Jamhuri Day, the theme is tourism, wildlife, meetings, incentives, and exhibitions, or the MICE sector. And this is testament to the fact that tourism is a major pillar in supporting the economy of this country through job creation, economic empowerment, foreign earnings, and it actually supports the whole ecosystem. We are celebrating tourism from the 8th to 11th of December, culminating into the climax on Jamhuri Day, which is 12th of December. Throughout the week, we expect to invite Kenyans and even our visitors who are in the country to participate. We expect a lot of exhibitions, mentoring and capacity building for the youth. We have a whole pack of extravaganza. We also expect some major policy announcements, and therefore this will be a week to participate. Okay,
Waziri, plenty to run through, including the numbers, the policies you talked about, technology, the youth, park fees for the common mwananchi, what tourism means, domestic tourism, and also the numbers and the projection, plus the target that you have, and some of the questions that later will be sent here in your company will be the other panelists.
Thank you.
When we get back from the break, the discussion will be here on the bench, and that is after the business news. And here is what's coming up. And time for business. Here on the broadcast, players in the finance sector have been urged to invest in artificial intelligence as e-commerce continues to take root across the globe. Speaking at the 5th Africa Members Convention in Mombasa, ACA Africa Director Jamil Ampoma pointed out that the skills deficit among accountants, citing it as an area of opportunity. It comes even as calls for accountability within the digital space took center stage, where the need for stronger cyber law dominated the convention. Laura Otieno has this report.
As the continent moves towards the implementation of the Africa Union Digital Transformation Strategy, calls for upscaling skills in the accounting sector have been made. According to the Africa Talent Acquisition Report of 2025, 80% of respondents across the continent showed preference for hybrid work, with 39% showing concern about developing skills needed for hybrid work.
These numbers help us paint a picture of the profession in Africa that is poised for change, ready for change, and most importantly, ready to lead the change. And that is why this is an incredibly exciting time for accountants.
There is a growing clamor across business for professionals who can answer this demand. The diploma offers exciting fields of new opportunities for accountants to pursue fascinating, satisfying, and rewarding career paths.
Thank you.
However, cybersecurity remains a challenge due to the lack of policies governing data protection. The gaps posing a threat to the integrity of financial and accounting systems.
And who will stop manipulation where there is fraud? You heard of digital fraud. Because digital is invisible. So the modern accountant, you are not now no longer expected just to be financial record keepers or custodians of these records. Now we expect you to guard the digital integrity.
Most of the young people, they need to go beyond just a book. They need to be able to embrace AI. They need to do courses that, even if it's an accounting, that actually embed AI in the training.
The 3-day convention will also focus on the role of accountants in sustainability in the wake of climate change, where businesses are transiting towards green energy and lowering carbon footprints. As the world evolves into what many say is a global village, various stakeholders are now aligning to artificial intelligence, with accountants also joining the bandwagon, seeking to streamline their services in line with the future of work. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV, in Mombasa.
East Africa has stepped up efforts to put young people at the heart of agricultural transformation as climate pressures and shifting market strains the region's food systems. Earlier in the day, the East African Community Secretariat, in partnership with the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, opened the East African Youth in Agri-Food Systems Expo 2025, which brought together agripreneurs and policy players. The gathering aims to expand access to finance, digital tools, climate-smart technologies, and stronger market links for young agri-entrepreneurs across the region, while giving them a platform to shape policy.
One of the key challenges is on the capital. Accessing the capital for the agribusiness interventions. That's been one of the key challenge. But also the issue of land is also a challenge in some countries. Market is also some challenge. So I think those three, the land access, the capital access, and also the market access, those are the key challenges.
Of course, we know that the region, the East African Community region, has so many youth, and there is a challenge of youth unemployment. Even when they have gone to universities, it's hard to get jobs. But there's a hope in opportunities for creating jobs to youth through agri-food system. And I'm not saying agriculture, because agriculture means farming at the farm level, primary agriculture, but you're talking about agri-food systems, so along the value chain. So there are many job opportunities from production, from input supply, from agro-processing, value addition. Of course, we have seen the value of ICT in agriculture, marketing, digital marketing, and many other activities.
And in Kajiado County, a growing number of small-scale dairy farmers living in urban centers are adopting zero-grazing systems in order to cut costs and boost milk production. The approach is redefining how dairy farming is done in a region traditionally known for open field herding. And on Smart Farm tonight, our reporter Dennis Otieno visited one such farmer, Julius Mutea, who is proving that even in a small plot in a town setup can sustain a thriving dairy enterprise.
Inside Lukreki area in Kajiado North, 15 cows and a few goats stand calmly in neatly kept stalls, all part of a zero-grazing unit owned by Julius Mutea. A trained animal specialist, Mutea turned his professional knowledge into practice, setting up an urban dairy project that is now paying off.
By training, I'm an animal scientist. And being close to the animals, I felt I should do the breeding. The breeding part is my major interest, and nutrition aspect. I decided to have animals that I can do trials and be able to tell other farmers what it is.
Mutea keeps 4 breeds, Aisha, Fresian, Gansey and Jersey. But after years of observation, one stands out for efficiency and adaptability to the semi-arid Kajiado climate.
I've discovered that the Jersey is the most economical animal to keep in terms of feed, in terms of milk production, and it has the least problems in terms of diseases. Also fertility, our major concern. You can expect a calf every year.
On just 1 acre of land, Mutea has designed an integrated farm, from dairy units to a small vegetable garden, nourished by biogas wastewater. The zero grazing system, which specifically sits on just a 20 by 20 square meter, allows him to maximize production space while recycling waste into useful farm inputs.
Cleaning up, mainly, routine cleaning. We are growing Napier, so That material goes to the Napier. And we have also potato growing down there, small scale, vegetable garden. Water from the biogas also goes for irrigation.
According to Mutea, this system not only improves milk yields, but also allows for better disease control and efficient land use, especially now as land parcels continue to shrink due to subdivision.
With the zero grazing, you create what we call a microclimate. We don't have to worry. I've done zero grazing units in Kajiado town, central. But you see, you have to do the microclimate by housing. The hotter the climate, the higher the roof. The colder, for example, in Idongori, you go down because the temperatures are low.
Mutea says the system comes with challenges, especially sourcing and transporting feed from far-flung areas like Machakos and Nakuru. But with proper planning, it pays off. On good days, he milks up to 4 cows, producing about an average of 100 liters a day, all delivered to the Oluileza Dairy Farmers Cooperative.
We have encouraged them that at least have your 100 cows, but you can have 2 at home zero grazing. That's 2 zero grazing. They have a milk throughout the year, then they keep the other herd as their catch-up practice.
The cooperative has trained hundreds of farmers like Mutea to embrace modern dairy systems that guarantee year-round income and better productivity, especially in urban setups where land is limited. Dennis Otieno, Smart Farm.
Business News, brought to you by Emirates.
The best holiday ever's finally over.
Thank you!
When you fly Emirates, your holiday isn't over until your flight is over.
Let's do some sporting action, and Emmanuel Ndungu is away, so I'm here. Kenyan boxers have landed a fair draw as they prepare to box off on Thursday in the IBA Men World Boxing Championships 2025. This is a world championship with a difference, as the bouts will be in an open space at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Stadium in the United Arab Emirates. From the draw conducted on Wednesday afternoon, most of the Kenya boxers needed to win 2 bouts, and they enter the market bracket with a minimum guaranteed win of 1 million shillings if they finish 5th. A semi-finals appearance guarantees 9 million shillings. Middleweight Edwin Okongo has the easiest path to the money bracket as he is seeded boxer. He needs 2 wins to get into the money bracket, and Washington Wandera in lightweight, Caleb Wandera in lightweight, and Captain Boniface Mogunde in lightweight middle all landed fair draws and have a good chance of advancing. The boxers have only 1 day to acclimatize before getting down to serious business on the tennis courts from Thursday. The national chalkball team is polishing up its preparations before flying the Kenyan flag at the Nations Cup Indoors Games in Geneva, Switzerland later this month. Our sports reporter Luqman Mahmoud has the details.
Are here at the Aga Khan Hall in Mombasa putting the final touches in their preparations for the 18 Nations tournament to be held from 11th to 21st December in Geneva, Switzerland. Kenya will participate in the men's, women's and youth categories as the game continues to attract players from across the country.
Each team has 9 players. I'd mentioned that we have 3 teams here. That's where we are. Right now we are doing what we call the finishing stages with our training. We are working on our defense and we're also working on our offensive. And I want to believe we will be good to go.
On the men's side, Kenya is in the same group as defending champions Italy and host Switzerland, but with good preparations, the team is optimistic of a podium finish. The women's team will compete against host Switzerland, Brazil, Germany and Hong Kong.
Our group ambayo tumepangwa ni it's quite a healthy competition because tuko na Italy pale, tuko na Switzerland, hao walikuwa finalist in the last Geneva Chalkball Indoors. Na we also have France and Cameroon. Cameroon wanajiita African Giants, but sisi tumejipanga na tunaamini kuwa our training is enough to take them down.
Training so far has been good since we came to Mombasa.
We have been joined by the under-18 team, and we've been training together. Bonding has been nice. So far, so good. I can say we are expecting good things.
Team Kenya finished in 3rd place at the Beach Chukball Championship in Indonesia earlier this year as they look to improve on their performance. After 2 weeks training camp here in Mombasa, Team Chukball is optimistic of a podium finish in Geneva Indoors game in Switzerland. Lukman Mahmoud, Citizen TV, Mombasa County.
Preparations for the Africa Youth Games scheduled for the 10th and the 20th of December in Angola have finally kicked off, with Kenya team officially starting their residential camp. The teams and athletes have been training separately since August when the selection was done. The focus this week is on coordination, conditioning and tactical awareness to bring the sharpness required ahead of the Games. The country will send 83 athletes in 17 sports disciplines that will include athletics, swimming, ball games and combat sports. The training camps are spread across Nairobi, Mombasa and Eldoret. The final squad leaves over the weekend to have enough time to acclimatize in Angola ahead of the opening ceremony. With just days to go, Team Kenya says it's ready to fly the national flag high and bring home the medals.
Tarajio yetu ni vile tunaendelea kutrain, we hope for better results. Zoezi imekuwa poa, tumekuwa tukitrain morning run na bado tunaangalia diet.
Team tumeingia jana jioni, tumeingia vizuri, tumekaribisha vizuri. Pia maandalizi tumeandalia vizuri. Tuko tayari at least kuendelea na mazoezi.
It's the first day, so I'm expecting a lot to learn.